What's up? This is the Game Forums Extended Forum, episode 21. I'm Zach,
And I'm Lindsay.
and today we are going to be talking about the Silent Hill DLC and Dead by Daylight, PS Plus games for June, and then the PlayStation 5 conference has been announced. But first, what have you been playing?
So I played a little bit more of the Walking Dead Saints and Sinners game.
Okay.
I played a good bit of Gorin this week. I'm going to try and get that review out sometime soon. That was pretty fun. It starts off real easy and then it gets a little tricky as it goes along. Um, but I've had a lot of fun with it. I think it's a really good game, especially for the price. Um, and then I hopped back in and played a little bit of Call of Duty to get a couple things I wanted out of the challenges before this season ended.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
the next season, I think it's season 4, starts sometime this next week.
All right. So this week, I've actually been able to play a good bit. Um, I finished Mafia 2, which I know me and you had spoken. I told you that earlier through work.
Yeah.
So I finished that up, and I kind of jumped into the DLC, and I was pretty intended on running through it, but then it's really like you control a character and you're just kind of in the open world, and like there's these mission icons, and you just go to those, and the little text bar will pop up explaining what the mission is, and then you go do it. So it was really kind of like it didn't have a lot of story. And I looked on the website to see how long those were, and they were all like 6 hours long a piece. And so I was like, I really think I want to hop out of that. But that game is amazing. You know, the story is super great. The calling it the definitive edition is a little odd because there's some major issues, and I've since learned that more of the issues are on PS4 than like the Xbox or PC. So I don't understand what went down there, but I still enjoyed it. It was still like I'm glad that I have it now on the PS4, so that way sometime later I could like replay it if I wanted to.
Yeah. Do you think it was more of a porting issue, or it just has to do with the studio they got to do the remaster? Maybe they didn't optimize for PlayStation 4 or something.
Yeah, I think it was the studio that did the remaster because they did the Shenmue 1 and 2 remasters, and apparently those were pretty bad too. And I think the team has only done remasters, and this is like their third remaster ever. So it
Oh,
could just
wow.
be yeah. It was not a good choice for them to pick this team, but it was probably the cheapest choice, and so they were just like they wanted to include it into the Mafia trilogy. So that makes a little sense.
Yeah, I mean, I get that they didn't want to like pour a ton of money into it since it's going to be a remaster of an older title, but they still wanted to give some hype to have people
Yeah,
replay it for Mafia 3 and Mafia 1 remaster coming out, or
yeah, and
remake, I guess.
yeah, and Mafia 2, like even Mafia 1, 2, and 3, none of those are like major games. So they probably knew like the even though the quality is not the greatest, that the people that are playing Mafia 2 are the people that have already played it, and so they're playing it for the story. No one's gonna be like, oh, what is this Mafia 2 Definitive? Well, I take that back. There might be some people that stumble across it, maybe heard something from the games, the previous generation, and want to hop in for the first time. But that is a terrible way to experience that game. But I guess with your experience, you had a bit more of a positive outlook. So I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe.
it was strange. Like I didn't have like pretty much any issues with it, and I had fun with what I played of it.
Yeah, and I guess from like a matter of perspective, like I have the reference of the first time playing through the game, and if someone were to play it now, not knowing how it played on the previous gen, they could be like, oh, I mean, it's a little choppy, but it's a remaster of an old game. What's to say? So I don't know. It might have worked in their favor, it being not a super popular game.
Yeah, like I said, my biggest complaint about it was probably the control scheme,
Yeah,
especially for shooting. It's just not as refined as some of the newer control schemes. But I mean, that's to be expected of an older game.
yeah. It's pretty stiff, and you kind of just the combat's very hard, but luckily there's not a whole lot of combat scenarios. There is one that I completely forgot about until I got to the very end of the game. There's a combat scenario that is just brutal. Like I was playing on hard, so that definitely had a had made it more difficult, but it was like I probably died maybe 50 times.
Yeah.
It was not fun at all. But then I did finish The Last of Us Remastered. I didn't play the DLC. I don't think there's really a point in playing a prequel DLC, but I did finish the game. The game was great. There's so many moments that I completely forgot about, good and bad. Bad being like all of the underwater sections. Those are just they're so annoying. I really hope they're not in part two, although I'm pretty sure it will be, but I hope it's at least like I just hope it feels better to like go underwater and stuff, because I kept like bumping into stuff and it felt weird. There were some other like combat sections in the game where you're having to defend yourselves from like multiple clickers, and it gets annoying because the clickers will be like, you know, so many feet away from you, and then like when they lunge, it just like automatically like zooms into you, and you have like no choice, and that gets really frustrating.
I do remember there was like a couple parts where I'd be like surrounded by something, and you have to like throw the stones to like get them to go another direction for a second.
Yeah.
And then you'd be like start getting past, and you'd think you'd be fine, and then they'd like run halfway across the level and just tackle you, and I'm like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. So like slight spoilers. Well, actually no spoilers for The Last of Us Remastered. If you haven't played the first one, but like when you control as Ellie, in the snowy areas,
Yeah.
when you are defending the little cabin area with that David guy, and you only really have the bow, and you have a rifle and a pistol, but you have no ammo for those, so you only have the bow. I don't know why, but I was having like a very difficult time, and I've gone through that part multiple times, but at least this one in particular, it was just I was struggling. I don't know if I'm just getting older and getting less reflective or what, but it was I did not remember that part being that difficult. And I was even on New Game Plus, to where all the weapons were like more upgraded. So it was a little frustrating. But so I beat those, and so then I started on the Outer Worlds, which was the game made by Obsidian. That's kind of like it's the better Fallout. I gotta say, I prefer Fallout like hand over fist over this game.
Really?
The story's good. I do enjoy the story, and I do enjoy like the characters and their dialogue and the voice acting. The dialogue tree is cool because it's very different. I'm playing a sarcastic actor, and it actually comes through to where people are like reacting to me in a like an annoyed way, which is funny. And so I was not expecting that to kind of like carry over. And you get access to a ship, and the AI is like really sassy, and the the captain of the ship dies, and so you are going to take over the ship. But the AI is like, well, you have to be. I can't remember his name. I think Captain Hawk. I don't. It's probably not it, but we're gonna say that's it. The AI is like, oh well, this is Captain Hawkins. I think it's Hawkins. Captain Hawkins' ship. So only he can command it. And then I had the option to be like, oh well, I'm Captain Hawkins. And so I said that, and the AI was like, oh, okay. Well, if you're Captain Hawkins, then I guess this is your ship. And it was like, oh man, this is all. So stuff like that. The writing is insanely good. But like, if you want to make it, it's like they were trying to make a game to kind of attack Bethesda in a way and be like, oh look, you took us away from the Fallout franchise, if that was even the case. But like, look what we can do. And I'm like, well, if you're gonna design the game to be better than Fallout, make it better than Fallout. The combat feels just as wonky as Fallout. The buttons are the same. Like if you hold down square, your gun will disappear. Uh, if you try to fast travel out of a building, the same text will pop up. It's like the loading screens are the same. Like they literally just copied the foundations of Fallout 3 and New Vegas and even 4, and then just added like a better, complex but cohesive story to it. So I was a little like, well, if I wanted to play a Fallout, I'd rather just play Fallout instead of this. But
So
I'm
you'd
only like,
rather play Fallout 76, is what you're telling me.
okay, see that's where things differ. Outer Worlds is at least better than Fallout 76. Although I have not played the Wastelanders DLC, so I might like Fallout better because they have added the characters and like a lot more single player content. I have not tried that yet. So I could actually walk away thinking that Fallout 76 is much better. And from what everyone's saying, it seems like it is a much better game. But I don't know. It was just I'm only 2.5 hours in. I'm still enjoying it, but it's Fallout in space, and that's literally the difference. The writing is better, but this is Obsidian. They make the Pillars of Eternity games, and so those are very like story and lore driven RPGs on PC. They're also on console, I believe. So they got some pretty good writers on their team, but other than that, I'm like, oh, it feels just like Fallout, which I guess a lot of people, can't complain if it's like oh, it feels like a great game, so that makes it a great game. I'm like, well, it feels like it's copying a great game is what it feels like to me. But
Yeah,
we'll
so
see.
I definitely get what you're saying. Like, I haven't played that one yet. I was kind of curious about it, but I just never got around to playing it.
Yeah,
But it sounds much more of a just straight up carbon copy than anything really pushing the bounds of like what Fallout could be.
yeah. It's what I guess I can say that it's what Fallout 4 should have been. It kept the same formula but innovated on it in other areas. So I guess that they got that going for it. And once again, I'm only 2.5 hours in. And one thing though I will enjoy about this game is that it's not long. You can run through the main story in like 12 to 15 hours. But if you were to like explore the different worlds or different locations you go to, you can push it to like closer to 30. And so that's awesome. I like the ability to like, well, I just want to run through the game, roll credits, and move on to the next. Um, and so, like with the, I tried another game because I really like to keep two games that I'm playing at the same time just to like differentiate. So I'll play if I have 6 hours one night to play, I'll be like, well, I'll play 3 and 3 or 4 and 2, whichever.
Yeah.
And I couldn't decide on like what the other game would be, and I didn't want to do anything super long or super ambitious because I want to make sure that I can at least finish one, if not both, before The Last of Us Part Two comes out. And so the double discount sale went live on Tuesday or Wednesday, and the one Assassin's Creed game that I had yet to play was Assassin's Creed Rogue, which was the 360's Assassin's Creed when Unity came out on the current gen consoles, and I went with Unity and not the previous gen. But the remastered version of it has come out, I believe, last year or the year before, and so it was on sale for like $10, and I was like, okay, well, it's an Assassin's Creed. It's the old style Assassin's Creed, which I'm okay with, and it's the one I haven't played. So I started playing that. I've played it for like maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, and I mean it's actually pretty good. Like the graphics are pretty similar to Black Flag, which came out on both gens, and it's pretty much the same game. Like it looks like they just took the foundation of Black Flag and just put a new coat of paint over it. Same mechanics, really. The story, however, is really interesting because, and this is known information. Plus, it's an old game, but it starts off with you in the Assassins, and then apparently something happens to where you kind of go towards the Templar path. So you become a Templar, you become the bad guys, and so I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of interesting. I want to see how this all plays out, and it was telling a backstory of Altair, who is the first assassin from the first Assassin's Creed game, and the timeline that game takes place in. I did not know this. Takes place during the same timeline as the Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So
Huh.
Altair is going to be alive during the time of Valhalla. So that's going to be interesting now that I've learned that, which I'm sure more people knew, but now I'm a lot more excited about the new Assassin's Creed coming out this year.
Okay, considering that he was alive at the same time, do you think that they're going to have him tie in to the story or at least cameo? Because I think there's pretty much a guarantee he'll at least cameo then.
Um, I it would have to be interesting because the game is based off of bloodlines. So Desmond Miles is his bloodline led to Altair, and now Desmond is dead. Spoilers for a very old Assassin's Creed game. I think, God, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood of Revelations explained that, and that was probably 2009, 2010, maybe even earlier. But so Desmond Miles, his bloodline went back to Altair and Altair up, and then this new character is Layla Hassan. She's the one who has the bloodline connected to Bayek in Origins, and then either Alexos or Alexandria in Origins, and then I'm assuming the character that you get to play as in Valhalla, which is Eivor. You can choose male or female. So that bloodline is separate, but it's connected between those games. So it's kind of like a soft reboot slash sequel because it's someone else doing the same thing. But so it'll be interesting to see how those two bloodlines meet. I'm hoping that there is like the Altair slash Desmond bloodline meets with the Eivor slash Layla bloodline, and it's like oh man, they came together at one point, or maybe they become enemies, or it'll be interesting. I really hope they make it interesting, but I don't know because Altair was in either Jerusalem or I can't. He was in like a Middle Eastern setting, and so I don't know what reason they would have those characters be involved with the Viking slash like England invasion.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's Assassin's Creed. They can do honestly whatever the hell they want.
Well,
They got.
I mean, if you look at it from what was going on at the time, like the Vikings were attacking, bits of England and stuff like that, and they were sending their, knights, the Templars, to Jerusalem for the Crusades.
Yeah.
This could take place maybe after he comes back from the Crusades. And then he's like, okay, maybe he goes and meets the Vikings to see what's going on with that on the other side.
It is possible that because Altair forms the Brotherhood, and so he could have heard of another rebellion, in Vikings, and then traveled there and met with your character at the end of the game, which would be cool, and then be like, hey, let's form a worldwide organization, or make the Brotherhood bigger than just this group of assassins and stuff. So it's possible. The one thing that is it's a bad nature of this soft reboot, and I don't know how much I'm gonna like it. Is that so? There was never any like fantastical or magical elements in the Assassin's Creed games, but in Origins they introduced that. So you could fight like there was magic. There was the Izu, which were the first civilization, were basically gods, and so they kind of like embodied who we view as mythical characters now. So like um, the great pharaoh was it Izu. So when he comes down, he looks like the Anubis. He is Anubis. Anubis was a ancient god, and so you fight that version of Anubis and stuff. And so um, like in Valhalla, he says Zeus is with us, and you see that old man turn into a bird. So like, there's going to be the magical element of the actual in quotation marks God Zeus, and so Thor may be there and Hercules may be there. So that they're gonna have to twist that around because the original Assassin's Creed games didn't have that. But I don't want to spoil it. But at the end of Odyssey, the ending is very interesting to the point to where it kind of explains what they're doing, but it hasn't been proven yet. And I'm hoping with the next game, which is Valhalla, they actually do that. But other than that, that's all I've been playing. It's a little more than usual, but also like I finished 2 games and started 2 games.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to the news, we are going to be talking about the Dead by Daylight Silent Hill DLC. Now, this is a huge deal because there's been a lot of rumors coming around with Silent Hill kind of getting a reboot or a refresh. It's just making the rounds, and there's a lot of rumors that Konami is interested in working with developers on the property. There's a rumor that Sony has bought exclusive rights to Silent Hill from Konami, or at least the licensing. So it looks like there's going to be a Silent Hill game possibly being announced Thursday, and it's going to be PS5 exclusive, which is going to be like mind blowing. Like that's the Mountain Dew Doritos get hype moment for me. Is if that gets announced, people in my apartment complex are going to know because I'm going to be like so excited. And the fact that this kind of came out earlier this week is making me like a little like excited because this is a major DLC drop for this game, which I've played a few times. Have you played Dead by Daylight?
I have not. I'm pretty sure I added it to my library. It was one of the free PlayStation
Yeah.
Plus games a while back, but I never got a chance to play it. But I do have to agree with you. the timing of this is
Yeah.
pretty good. That's very good cross promotional advertising to be like, hey, there's this popular game that has horror characters. Let's add in a character from our game to kind of like promote it.
Yeah.
I definitely see the writing on the walls as far as them working on something with this.
And the original creature creator, the guy who came up with Pyramid Head, retweeted the announcement of the DLC, and then he also retweeted the PlayStation 5 reveal trailer with a wiki face. So like I don't know if I'm playing into that too much, but I did see that, and it is making the rounds. He's a it seems like he's coming back, and there's even some. There was a horror manga artist that had posted some pictures on his Instagram, and it was the like concept art, not concept art, but like drawings of Silent Hill, and then a picture of the Konami logo like on their building. So he had made a visit to Konami, and so he had posted that. So there's definitely something happening, but I don't know how big. But if they're starting off with major DLC for Dead by Daylight, which includes Heather Mason, who is from Silent Hill 3, and Pyramid Head, who is from Silent Hill 2, but I can't remember. I don't think he's in 3. I think he's in 2 and then 1 or 2 other games. So it's interesting that they got 2 different characters, and they have the Midwich Elementary School as the level that you can play, and I think that's from Silent Hill 1. So maybe we're looking. Maybe I mean, if they announce like a Silent Hill remake of 1, 2, and 3, starting with 1, I'm gonna flip out.
In other news this week, the PlayStation Plus games for June are going to be Call of Duty World War II and Battlefront 2.
Yeah,
Um, Battlefront 2 has been out for quite a while. It had a very negative reception upon launch, um, mainly due to its pay to win system, but they fixed it. I've gone back in and played a good bit a couple months ago. It's really fun. Like, it's a game where the graphics are still like some of the highest tier graphics you can play on a console.
yeah,
It's got a really fun combat system. They've really retooled and retweaked everything. It's definitely one I would recommend picking up.
yeah,
Um, and then we have Call of Duty World War II. I really liked this game, but
yeah,
I think this is a very strange pick for a free to play game right now. So they have Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and they spun Warzone off as a free download. And there's still a lot of people who play Black Ops 4, and now they've just made Call of Duty World War II free. This seems like an oversaturation of Call of Duty. There's like essentially 4 separate things for Call of Duty all going on at the same time. Like
yeah,
I get it's popular, but that's a lot.
yeah. I think that this might be a marketing strategy because Jeff Grubb, I think I had talked about him last week. He had kind of released a bunch of dates with a bunch of like hints as to what's going on. Like he has insider information, that kind of thing. And he's saying that, I think it's a clear bet that the next Call of Duty will be at the PlayStation 5 event on Thursday, because Sony still has a marketing deal with Activision. I wasn't sure if that was true, but it seems like it is. So that could be a possibility that they're wanting to like, hey, we'll release your game for free on our service, get more people playing it. Maybe people didn't really get to experience, and then they could come in with the announcement of the new Call of Duty on the PlayStation reveal. That could be a cool thing. Now with the Star Wars, it gets a little interesting because that Jeff Grubb character had come out and said that on between June 2nd and June 4th, he wasn't sure. Uh, that he had posted a picture of Mel Gibson, and that covered the dates between June 2nd and June 4th. There was just a picture of Mel Gibson, and a lot of people were like, "What the hell? What does this mean?" And the people did some digging and found out that Mel Gibson was in a movie called Maverick. Maverick is kind of like Project Maverick, that Star Wars game that had leaked on the PlayStation Store. And so a lot of people are thinking that, like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe the PlayStation Maverick game is going to get announced at the PS5 event as well. And so maybe they're kind of like working to cross promote games in order to like, I don't know. That sounds like you're kind of like fishing for theories, but it could be possible. I don't know.
Well, see, one thing I would think about too, though, with the Call of Duty release, since the next one is going to be a Black Ops title set back in the Cold War, I think it'd probably be more prevalent for them to release one of the Black Ops Call of Duty games for free. You know, maybe not 4 since it's a newer one and they still want some people to buy it, but maybe go back and release Black Ops 3, but maybe that would steal from Black Ops 4's sales. I'm not sure.
Well, didn't they do 3 during that E3 press conference? They announced that Black Ops 3 was free to, you can download it for free. I think it was. I feel like all Call of Duties have at one point been free to play, or well, maybe not all. I feel like Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4 have at least been on PlayStation Plus before.
Okay, I don't think Black Ops 4 has. That one only came out
what, 2
year
years
before
ago?
last.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know. It's an interesting move, but I think it's intentional. There's no way they just randomly release 2 big hitting multiplayer games.
Yeah,
It seems odd.
it does seem a bit strange because both of those were like high value AAA titles at some point in the last couple of years.
Now it could be to make up for the backlash they got for May for releasing Cities Skylines and Farming Simulator.
Oh, that could be true as well.
It could be like, yeah, we really we screwed that up. So here's 2 awesome multiplayer games, but I don't know.
See, I actually wanted to get in and play City Skylines. I have it downloaded, but I haven't had a chance to play it.
Yeah.
I was actually a pretty big fan of SimCity. I played SimCity at launch when the new one came out, and that was not a fun experience. The game is really, it was good, but it was really broken, and I hated the fact that it like limited your city size. Like that was pretty much what killed the game for me. But I've had an interest in City Skylines, but I'm like, okay, I got burned on SimCity. I've heard this one's better, but I don't want to drop like $60 to be disappointed again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Well, I've heard that it's pretty good. So I don't know. I guess it's a pretty good free game if you think about it. And we did, me and my wife, we downloaded that Farming Simulator game and tried to play it. God, it's terrible. It is like, I don't know why I didn't think that when it has the word simulator in it that it was going to be boring. And it is like, you gotta walk to the barn to get the grain. You gotta pick up the grain, walk to the thing with the grain, and pour it in there and put it back, and then hop in and turn it on. And I was like, people play these for fun. I can't imagine that.
It's definitely not my cup of tea, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was not that great, and it didn't look too great. And it was last year's, I think, Farming Simulator. I don't know. I really should, it's got an audience, which they sell well enough, and that's all that matters. All right, and then on Thursday, we got one of the greatest, I think, state of plays with the Last of Us Part 2 state of play. Did you watch it in its entirety or just the gameplay video?
I just watched some of the gameplay video. I did not watch it in its entirety.
Okay. What did you think of the gameplay?
It looks really good.
Oh, yeah.
I am definitely impressed with some of the combat systems and stuff they have in here, and some of the like emotional weight they put behind some of the things. So like, they were saying like if you shoot somebody, like their friends are going to be like, "Oh no, Ben, what did you do?"
Yeah.
And like they'll get more aggressive towards you. I'm like, stuff like that is a really cool touch that you don't really see a whole lot, and can kind of make you feel bad for like killing certain enemies. instead of just, oh, here's more grunts, I'll just murder them all.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a pretty cool touch. That was probably like one of the main things I took away from it that I think really helped gives the game a lot more realism and emotional weight.
Yeah, the dog squealing really was like, this is gonna be tough. But I mean, they're really nailing down the realism, so I got to give them that. It's going to be interesting, and I definitely cannot wait to have a conversation about it because since I do know the spoilers and you do or you don't, um, it's going to be a cool perspective on what happens and what they go through, and so I'm super interested. But there's also like I don't know, I, like with Last of Us remastered. Imagine if the whole very beginning of the game with Sarah and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine if that leaked. I feel like people would be like, "Oh, what the hell, man? This I don't this. What is this? This is silly or like this isn't what you said it was." But like that had so much context in the game itself that it really added to the story. So I'm really hoping or wondering if the leaks that have come out and the ones that I've seen are really like, yeah, they're moments, but like you don't have the context of why and like where that goes and what happens and like that's what I'm kind of super curious to see.
Yeah. Now, like I said, I've avoided all the spoilers and stuff so far, so I'm very curious to see, what direction they end up taking this and how all the pieces end up fitting together.
Yeah, yeah. No, knowing what I know isn't keeping me from wanting to play this. If anything, it's intriguing me more because I want to see how. And I expect nothing less than just pure greatness from the studio. And I think this is going to be. It's gonna. There was a quote that Troy Baker had said, who voices Joel. He said that the story that Neil Druckmann has wrote is not meant to be a wave that lands on one shore or the other, but an ocean of conversation. And that's stuck with me since then. And I really agree, having seen some of the spoilers, that this is going to be like one of, if not the most controversial game, but not for good or bad reasons, just for conversation topics. And that is going to be super awesome. And I really hope people don't just like judge the game based off of one or two things instead of like play the game and experience the story together than just going off of a few images or a few sentences in a 30-hour game that have leaked out.
So, one other thing that's kind of slid under the radar for a lot of people, Qualcomm just announced a new chip for VR headsets. A lot of people probably aren't too familiar with Qualcomm. They're actually the largest producer of CPUs for smartphones. Chances are your newer smartphone has a Snapdragon chip in it. It's the most produced CPU of any smartphone. So this is a huge company that kind of like flies under the radar, just because most people don't think about it. And Apple and Samsung both use Qualcomm chips. Um, this new chip they're coming out with is supporting XR technology, and I had to kind of look and see what XR really means. XR means it can do augmented reality or virtual reality or a combination of the two. Um, and so with this, you could have essentially a smartphone, and this is becoming more and more prevalent, that can use augmented reality stuff or virtual reality stuff, like the Google Cardboard thing. And we think of that as
Yeah,
kind of real low level entry stuff. But this is really kind of beefing up the next gen chip for a much bigger VR focus. They have 15 global partners with this next chip, and a lot of them will be making newer versions of like 3D glasses and like augmented reality glasses. So, what this really says to me is that VR has taken off as an industry. a lot more than people tend to suspect. To have one of the biggest CPU manufacturers in the world now make a chip essentially specifically focusing on the XR capabilities, VR and augmented reality aspects of this, and they have so many partners. And these are big companies too, um, that are going to start making some of these new headsets, and maybe not headsets is the correct way, but more we're going to start seeing a lot more cheaper VR and augmented reality glasses. So instead of just having, okay, if you want to have a good VR experience, you need, a PlayStation and a PlayStation VR for hundreds of dollars, or, a computer and a VR headset for your computer for
Yeah.
hundreds of dollars. This is going to be almost like a revolutionary thing where we're going to start seeing a lot more $100 style glasses that can handle more basic VR style stuff. But we're going to start seeing a whole new market and level of VR games that we haven't really seen up until this point. So it's really going to expand the market, and I'm really excited to see what kind of capabilities and new games and new ideas for games we end up getting out of this. So I do think that this will end up changing a lot of stuff in the market as far as VR stuff goes, heading into the future.
Do you think the rumored PlayStation VR 2 headset it sounds like they may not use this, but do you think they're gonna they're they're far enough ahead in development that they're this is gonna change some perspectives, or do you think they're I don't know they're when do you think PSVR 2 is gonna come out?
Like, okay, as far as how this ties into PlayStation VR, um, the PlayStation VR is going to be using the PlayStation itself's processor.
Okay.
This is going to be more or less like a standalone unit. So imagine just like instead of like a big VR headset, like just some goggles with a small chip and everything condensed down to a really small package that can give you the ability to play something maybe like super hot. Like, I guess a good example of where this kind of stands into everything, the closest thing I can compare this to right now would be more like the Oculus Quest, where
Okay.
you have like a just standalone unit. Um, it's cheaper. It can't quite do some of the super fancy things like Half-Life Alyx or anything like that. But if you want to go in and play some smaller experiences, maybe like Job Simulator or maybe like Super Hot or something like that, it can do that. And what this will start opening up is much cheaper options for maybe mobile phones or like I said, these maybe $100, $200 headset kind of things, to where you can start having these kind of level experiences without having to drop, $1,000 to get a console and a headset or a computer and a headset. So this will be more toward just a standalone play unit, but because of that, I think it'll open up VR to a lot more people than it has before. Because, let's say you don't have a PlayStation 4 and you don't have a PlayStation VR. I mean, a PlayStation 4 is still around $300 to $400, and a PlayStation VR with the headset, the Move controllers, and all that is still around $400. That's like almost $800 just without even buying any games for it yet. If you
Yeah.
could go and get just like some VR goggles, let's say Samsung VR goggles for, $150, and maybe it comes with some simple control sticks and you can play Job Simulator, that opens up a whole new market of games and game creators to sell games to. So you might see a whole lot more, simple graphic games that are really fun, and maybe a lot more people into the market of VR to help push development for VR even further. So maybe 10 years from now, instead of us having, these super powerful consoles and all this stuff, this is kind of the first step toward, okay, I got some VR goggles. I put them on, and now I can play everything photorealistic because the technology has advanced so much, and everyone bought the cheaper one. I mean, it's just the same thing with smartphones. If you go back and
Yeah,
look at the first, iPhone, it was pretty expensive. It had a lot of cool new game breaking features, and everyone else had to adapt and start jumping on that. And now, you can go out and buy a smartphone for like $100, $200, and it has 100 times more features than that original smartphone had. But it all had to start somewhere. And I kind of look at this as a good launch point to really push VR as a whole into the next stage of industry development.
yeah. See, that's interesting because broadening the starting base to VR is only going to help widening the higher. Like so, PSVR 2 is probably going to have a sales boost because of this, because more people are going to be introduced to VR. And if Sony is smart about this, they can take, if they can interestingly and creatively take some of their IP and turning it into a VR format. Then let's say someone has buys a PS5 or has a PS4 and goes into PS5, and then they happen to play a VR game through a device using this chip, and then it could be like, oh well, a new game from Sony just got announced exclusive to PSVR 2, and it looks incredible. Well, I'll buy that headset, and then I would hope that you know PSVR 2 will be a significant amount more powerful than the first iteration, to
Yes.
like make it like a tangible jump, and not like, well, I'd rather just play the cheaper version of a VR experience.
Well, I definitely feel like the PlayStation VR 2, and then, like I said, there's no specs, there's nothing for us to go on yet.
Yeah,
But the PlayStation VR 1, Sony kind of just dipped their toes in the water, essentially.
yeah,
Like, it had very low resolution screens. The box was not integrated into the PlayStation 4, so it wasn't planned to be a thing at the beginning of development. The controllers were just move controllers from the PlayStation 3. So, as a hardware aspect of PlayStation VR 1, it was literally designed to be, cheap, affordable, and a low amount of product development in case this didn't work. Because I think Sony kind of got burned on the Vita. They put all this money, all
yeah,
this development into it. They made the absolute best thing, and everyone just bought Game Boys because that's what they've always done. Like, Sony had all the power behind it, but they didn't market it well. So instead of spending billions of dollars to develop something that they just lose all their money on, they're like, okay, we're going to play it safe. We're going to do kind of a half step. But at the time, especially at launch, you had $400 for the camera, controllers, and headset for the PlayStation versus, $1,000 for their competitors.
yeah. That is true. So it's going to be interesting, and I really do hope that VR makes a bigger stand than. Well, I mean, I guess it's still pretty impressive with what it's doing, but it would be interesting to see if in the next 10 to 15 years we get like Ready Player One quality experiences. I don't know if that's possible. Maybe maybe if they just do an MMO VR game, that's about as close as you can get.
Yeah, I do think though this Qualcomm chip, especially since they do so much development with smartphones, we'll start seeing, some of the newer smartphones have much more VR capabilities and augmented reality capabilities than they do now. Because as far as augmented reality, I mean, most people know it from like, Pokemon Go, where you can turn it on and see your Pikachu on the table or something.
Yeah,
Um, but as far as VR stuff goes, I mean, most of these are very simple, There are simplistic things where you just kind of look around a video or something moving around you. It's nowhere close to even the level of like, an Oculus or a PlayStation VR or any of that kind of stuff. And with these new chips, that'll give some of these smartphones that use these chips the capability to start catching up to some of that. Now, keep in mind the Oculus and the PlayStation by this time will probably be on their next iteration and be even stronger. But this also means, in a couple years, you might be able to have a smartphone that has the capabilities of, some of the current PlayStation VR stuff.
Yeah, that would be crazy to just easily have something like that, so accessible and cheap.
Yes.
All right, and ending this episode out with a bang, we're going to be talking about the PlayStation 5 has finally been officially talked about by Sony. And we're getting a full reveal of at least the games on Thursday, June 4th. Now, by the time this is out, we will have already released an episode focused on the expectations and predictions that we're going to have and talk about. So, nothing too in depth now, but are you excited for the
Oh, yeah.
event?
I'm definitely excited. I think Sony has stayed quiet for far too long on this.
Yeah,
Um, they've been putting out some hype, and I think they kind of have to deliver. Like, if they have an event like the Xbox where everyone's just kind of meh, I think Sony's going to feel it way worse than Xbox. Because Xbox has kind of been going out and dropping tidbits here and there, and they did kind of fumble their first look at gameplay, but because they've been putting out stuff more regularly, I think they kind of got a little bit of a pass. I mean, people kind of beat up on them for a second, but I don't think it's really going to hurt Xbox overall. But Sony hasn't really talked about the PlayStation 5 like all year, and the year's already like almost halfway over. If they don't like stick the landing on this, I think it's really gonna hurt PlayStation.
yeah. And I think they know that. I think that's why they've been waiting. They want to deliver, not just a, a 1-2 punch, but they want to deliver the knockout hit as well. And there's been rumors of like, oh, they've been trying to do something, and they don't want to do the stay at home approach, and so they want to have a more polished and professional look, which I can understand. And I do think it's ironic that the one major studio or major company that was avoiding E3 at all costs is the only one giving us an E3 quality uh, press, reveal.
Yeah,
Uh,
that is kind of funny.
and so like they're the only ones. They're gonna have the biggest wave, and I'm super excited. I'm also trying to slow my expectations because we don't know exactly what we're getting. It's We do know that it is over an hour long, and that could either mean that it is going to be slam packed with reveals, or very in depth look at certain games showing like gameplay, or maybe they're going to give us a little more of a look inside the PlayStation 5 than we're expecting, and they kind of like go over some of the specs and what they could do. I hope they don't do that. I hope it is just games. I think they've hinted at that it is going to be games, and so I mean, man, we could get an hour to a little over an hour of just like trailer after trailer after trailer, which would be super incredible, and just a huge blow to Microsoft, who will retaliate in July with their Xbox first party games. So it's going to be interesting, and I, I'm looking forward to it, and I want to see what they've been working on,
Yeah, no,
because
I definitely want to see what they've been working on. I think we'll probably get a little bit of a mixture of both. We'll probably get some, first looks at some games and just see some trailers. And then I'd probably say maybe some more in depth, like 5 to 10 minutes, probably like 5 minutes of maybe 3 or 4 games. So we'll probably see, a couple quick trailers and then a deep dive more into some of their bigger titles.
yeah, I hope so. I hope that there's a healthy dose of exclusives. And from a quote that Jim Ryan had said, that he doesn't really want uh, games to be playable on PS4 that are on PS5. He wants like PS5 exclusives, and if this is showing the PS5, like the games and stuff, I think they're only going to show PS5 games, and that has to be super exciting because if it's an hour long, we're getting at least 10 to 20 game reveals, maybe more. Um, I mean that's going to be super exciting.
Yeah. I guess the last bit of PlayStation news we got too is apparently the price for the PlayStation 5 is not going to be affected by COVID. So they had previous deals with manufacturers to kind of lock in the price before any of this started. Now, I do think this is going to mean two different things. A, I'm very glad that we're not going to be seeing like a $700 console or something
Yeah,
like that. B, because the price is locked in, that does not necessarily mean that the quantity is locked in. So
yeah,
for these producers, they might have really ramped up production if Sony was willing to dish out some extra cash. But since they already have like a guaranteed price, they already know exactly what they're going to be paying for it. And I'm sure that there's some stipulations on they have to meet certain quantities, but due to COVID, that might not be possible. So I think we're going to see a good price on the console, but I think it's going to be incredibly limited at launch.
yeah. In which they've already said, well, they themselves haven't said. I think it was a spokesperson or an analyst or someone not super closely affiliated with PlayStation and Sony had said that they were going to have, a fewer launch of consoles this year, so that could be possible. One thing that does worry me is that because they are kind of locked into the price, that if they come out at $500 and Xbox is like, oh well, you know what, we're dropping it to 450 or whatever, just to like get that extra little punch in. Sony won't really be in a position to change that. They'll be stuck with the 500. But Jim Ryan did come out and say that they are making it a promise to give you the best value in gaming. And there's a lot that can be said to that. And I think that has to do with what the system is going to offer. And it's going to be a premium experience. So I think they want you to feel comfortable with spending $500, and Microsoft just wants you to buy their system, or getting their ecosystem, whether it's the Xbox One, PC, or the Series X. They want you involved in the system and then get you into Game Pass.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely think that the fight for the next generation of console supremacy is going to be a really, knockdown, drag out thing because Microsoft really wants to reclaim that title of best selling console, and Sony really wants to try and fight to keep it. So I'm very curious to see what each side ends up really throwing at the other to really entice consumers of why you want an Xbox or a PlayStation.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting fight indeed.
Well, tell us what you think about the next generation of consoles in the comments down below. And until next time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.